I was struggling with anxiety. I was ridiculously competitive, deeply insecure. Those three, that trifecta is deadly. So very toxic human being. And I think a lot of it was an outgrowth of an incident when I was in 4th grade and I was molested by another kid. And it was not as traumatic of an incident as a lot of people have survived, but what happened, as I look back, I now understand my full psychology, but one of my fundamental philosophies is that most of us are dealing with some kind of internal conflict that we have never resolved because something happened to us when we were little, and we did something to survive it, and that survival mechanism, mine happened to be lying, but that survival mechanism worked when you were a kid. It worked to keep you safe. It worked to keep your abusive dad from not screaming at you. It worked to make people like you. But as you got older, you never updated that strategy. And so a lot of people that we serve, that I work with, whether they are the CEO of a publicly traded company or they are a kid just graduating from high school or hoping to graduate from high school, the number one thing that most people are dealing with is they're dealing with unresolved internal conflicts about shit that happened when they were a kid. And what happened to me when I was a kid is I had this incident happen where I was abused by another kid. Again, not as scary as what a lot of people deal with. And when I went downstairs in the morning after it happened, my mom was standing there and she turned to me and said, "Oh, hi, how did you sleep, honey?" And I saw out of the corner of my eye that the kid that had done it to me was sitting at the table. And I immediately said, "Fine." And that moment, right there, when I said fine, I made a decision not to say what happened because I didn't want her to get upset. I didn't want there to be a scene. I didn't want to get in trouble. I mean, this was like a 4th grader processing this. It solidified a strategy that I used literally until I was in my mid-30s. And that strategy was, don't tell the truth. Assess and say whatever it is that is going to kind of calm the waters or make people happy. And so I became somebody that literally was driven by looking around and making sure everything was okay and not wanting to upset people. And I was very competitive and outgoing, but it was not the kind of competitive and outgoing that I am today that's grounded in confidence and that's grounded in my values. It was a competitiveness and an outgoingness that was based in insecurity. You've all had the experience, right, where company's coming over and somebody is freaking out about the state of the house and cleaning like a frenzy. That it would be me. It's so easy to catch somebody's anxiety. And so I wanted you, Chris, to address some of these questions, because the first question was, do you ever catch my anxiety when I get anxious?
No.
I think you get annoyed.
At least not in the moment.
How is it that you don't catch it? Because I catch our daughter Kendall's anxiety, or our daughter Sawyer, or our son's anxiety. But you seem to be able to insulate yourself from other people's anxiety.
Well, I mean, it's a good question, because I do sometimes find myself catching our kids' anxiety, but I don't catch yours. And maybe that's just because of the amount of time that we've had together and the moments, frequent moments often, where I've been the one sitting there with you and trying to extract your anxiety, because that's really the technique that has always been so effective with you.
Can you explain that? Break down what you do. If I start getting anxious, like I did on Sunday, or I have throughout our 24-year marriage, what do you do? Because you have this superpower of being able to remain calm. And the thing that I find the most validating is, even though you don't feel anxious, you are able to validate my reality of being anxious even though you're not in the same reality?
I mean, without giving it too much thought, I think some of it has to do with the fact that, first of all, touch is huge, right?
What do you mean touch?
Meaning being able to hold your hand or being close and upfront and personal to what you're experiencing, and just pulling what you're feeling out of your mouth. Like that act of inviting you to describe what's going on, to give detail to it, and to almost not let up, to keep like pulling a thread, like what else is going on? What else is there? What else are you feeling? And I think maybe part of the reason why I don't get triggered by it in that moment is because I've seen it work so effectively that once you get it all out,
It's like barfing.
it dissipates. So it's almost as though the calming nature of the question set and extracting that from your brain or from your heart or wherever you're feeling it, I know, or I have a high degree of confidence that it will calm down. It may not just extinguish itself, but it will go away.
So can we break this down for people? Because I'm not very good at that.
I didn't watch your video the other day, so I wondered what you did to actually calm yourself.
I journaled, I talked to you. I then texted my 3 closest friends, Mindy and Lisa and Gretchen. And then I went for a really long walk, which stimulates your parasympathetic nervous system and calms you down. But so technique number 1 is to give somebody a hug or hold their hand, center them with physical touch.
Yeah.
Okay.
Sit up close in front of them. Make sure that you have the as much eye contact as you can have physically with that person.
Okay. I'm realizing that you do this consciously. It's sneaky guy.
It's been a few years.
And then the second thing you do is give people the questions that you might start asking the person in your life that's feeling anxious.
Well, I would start with, tell me about your anxiety right now. What are you feeling? What's happening? Not only physically in your body, but of course emotionally. I mean, those are the 2 main pillars.
And then you keep going, and anything else. And he does that over until I'm literally like the tank is completely empty. You know what else I've noticed, and I think this is a really important thing, is that you don't respond to what comes out of my mouth.
No answers. You cannot provide any direction or guidance or go for the solve.
Why?
Because there is no solve, particularly when you're in the acute moment. Nothing is going to resolve that right there and then, even if you have the most best, idea ever, which is super tough for guys in particular, I think, because we're so programmed to go for the solve rather than just be with it.
Here's what I just realized at the biggest possible level about why what you do with me when I feel anxious is so genius. Well, anxiety is all about uncertainty, and typically it's about what you're afraid of in the future that's coming that you can't control. And by getting close to somebody physically, even if it's over a video call and you lean in, but you always sit very close to me, or you give me a huge hug when I'm feeling anxious, or you hold my hand, you're grounding me with physical touch back in this moment. And then the questions of extracting it get me to a point where I'm empty and no longer spinning, and I'm right back in this moment when I have nothing left to say. And because you don't either try to discount or solve or invalidate anything that comes out of my mouth. You just get it out. I'm able to get it all out, because the second you would say, well, you don't have to worry about that or this, that, and the other, somebody that's having anxiety will start to argue back, which then takes you back into the future fear.
Yeah, then you're jumping into a conversation, which is the last thing that the person who's suffering the anxiety wants to be having.
Since you've done this with me 100 times, and we have kids that have some anxiety, what is it that you've observed when you get somebody back to zero and in the moment? What do you observe in the person?
I don't know. I've never really thought about that. I think what I observe is what you just said, which is people coming back to right now, and how that is in and of itself is such a powerful grounding mechanism because you're when you're right here, you're out of your head. You're not thinking about yesterday or tomorrow or wherever the source of that anxiety may be coming from. You're present to your physical space and surroundings, and that, I think, I know it has a profound effect on calming it, not necessarily extinguishing it, but certainly calming it.
I think that's your superpower. I really do. Like, you are the most grounded, calm person in my life. And I wonder if it's the years of having a meditation practice and being a practicing Buddhist that has trained that skill in you.
I think so. I mean, I've never sat down to think about where it comes from necessarily, but yes, in Buddhist tradition or practices, completely just being in observance and the act of deep listening, not just, opening your ears, but really listening for what is being said is totally, that's right up a Buddhist alley for sure.
Wow. Now I know why our kids like you more. I'm more fun, but you're the one that grounds us all. When you first start using the 5-second rule, most people use it to get to the gym, to make sales calls, to get up on time, to have tough conversations, to do the physical stuff.
Yeah.
But the real mojo is to use it to rewire your mindset.
Okay.
And so if you're somebody that suffers from anxiety, first of all, here's what you need to know. It's not a disease. Period. It's not a disease. There are people that suffer from acute anxiety disorder. They should seek professional help. There's incredible medication that works. I'm talking to the people that suffer from more general anxiety that people feel in their day-to-day lives,
right,
or that are brought on by a specific situation. I'm also speaking from specific personal experience and the fact that we know of hundreds of thousands of people who've actually cured their anxiety,
right,
because of what I teach. Too many of you are sitting around waiting to feel ready. You can still move forward when you're not ready. Too many of you are waiting to feel like you deserve to make 6 figures. It's about the action. Your mind, your history, your past, you will always have a million excuses not to do it, not to feel like it, not to believe in yourself. They're all The only thing that matters in your life and your business is the actions that you're taking. And the more consistently that you take action, the faster you will start to believe in yourself, because you will see proof that you are not the kind of person that sits around and feels unworthy, that you're not a victim that sits by and gets sucked into other people's stuff, that you're not that kind of person. So it won't make sense to believe it anymore, but it starts with action. I believe in all of you, and I believe in your ability to get it done. But it's going to be up to you. Who is the problem? Yeah. Who's the solution? That's right. Don't wait to feel like it. That is the biggest mistake you could possibly make. Remember that you're smart. Remember that you know what to do.
I'm about to change your life because this piece of research changed mine. Procrastination has nothing to do with work. The people that write to us the most that struggle with procrastinating, PhD students, engineers, entrepreneurs, people that have a lot on their plate, that have a lot of things that they need to juggle, and that are analytical and thinkers by nature. Procrastination is a form of stress relief. What are you stressed about?
I want to get out of this business of real estate. I want to retire in the next 5 years, and I can't because I have not saved up. I have not gotten the money that I need to do that.
Bingo, and it makes you upset, doesn't it? Yeah. How many of you can relate to that? She said that what's stressing her out is she wants to retire. She hasn't saved up enough money. What's really stressing you out is finances and money and the fear that you have. What happens when you struggle with procrastinating, and thank you for being so honest, there's that stresses you out. Maybe you feel the same way. I mean, we felt that way. I know exactly what you're talking about. You carry around this dark cloud because you don't think you're gonna make it and you're stressed about money all the time. Or maybe your mom's health is declining and that really stresses you out. Or maybe your best friends are going through a divorce or you're going through a divorce and that really stresses you out. And so you walk around with this big ass thing on your shoulders all the time. And then you walk into work and you sit down and you've got a list of phone calls to make, which requires your prefrontal cortex. And your prefrontal cortex looks at the list and is like, oh my God, you want me to make 15 phone calls? I've been worried about the money all day. Can we just look at cat videos? I need a break. And next thing you know, 2 hours is gone. You've been online shopping, you've been looking at cat videos, and then of course you look at the 15 phone calls, you're like, I didn't make them, I didn't make them, I didn't make them. The research on procrastination is undeniable, it's black and white. Number one, all of you that procrastinate, procrastination's not the issue, it's stress. You're procrastinating to give yourself a little break at work. It's sort of like taking a smoking break almost, you know? You're just taking a break. So number one, because you're all stressed out and procrastinators are very hard on yourselves, this is gonna sound super stupid, but you gotta forgive yourself. You have got to actually have a talk with yourself where you feel yourself starting to procrastinate, you go, look, I know I really screwed up. I know I'm in a mess financially. I forgive myself. I'm just gonna do the best that I can. So you have to address the thing that's underneath it. So that self-awareness of knowing, oh my God, here's that stress again about finances screwing me over and preventing me from doing the small things that will actually fix my finances. Second thing that you're gonna do, procrastination's a habit, right? You get triggered by stress, the habit is to procrastinate. So when you get triggered by stress, your new habit is, oh, there's my stress again. I'm gonna actually tell myself, okay, you've done the best you can. It's okay, we're gonna do a little bit today. You're gonna create what we call starting ritual. A starting ritual is something that pushes you to start. The best one on the planet, the 5-second rule. So you've said, okay, there's my stress again. I forgive myself. Now we're gonna 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. I want you to only work for 5 minutes. That's it, 5 minutes. Make phone calls for 5 minutes. Here's what we know based on the research. 80% of you will keep going. The trick is starting. You see, I want to break the connection between the trigger, which is stress, and the response, which is procrastination. And whenever you feel stress, which is normal, you have a choice. Here's that gap. In 5 seconds flat, the habit of procrastinating and beating yourself up will take over. Or you can close the gap, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and you can make a different choice. I'm just gonna get started. I'm just gonna be okay with where I'm at, and I'm just gonna get started. Got it?
For me, as a kid, for whatever reason, I have my own version of feeling invisible and feeling like I'm not good enough. And so my way of coping, both with my anxiety and being a survivor of sexual abuse and wanting love, which we all need, is I was like an overachiever. And so I'm the kind of person that's super busy and a go-getter because it got me attention. And if I was the one that was super busy and achieving, I not only got praise, but it also insulates you from other people not picking you. because you're the one in a leadership role doing the picking.
Right.
And so there's a part of me at the age of 51 that is realizing that, you know, these feelings of feeling unworthy and this hyper drive to try to achieve, it's all coming from a place of feeling inadequate or like what I'm doing is not enough. And
Still,
so that's
at 50, having the talk show, having a best-selling book, having the Audible originals, having the platform everywhere, having the impact, it still don't feel, being the most booked female speaker in the world, like you still don't feel.
it's so stupid. It's annoying. And human beings are annoying. We are stuck with this wiring. Like if you think about it, like all of the crap you believe is probably a hangover from age 0 to 10. That as adults, we walk around thinking the same stuff we thought as kids. And I can't stand that I feel that way, but knowing it, it allows me to catch it before it stops me from having an event or writing that next book or taking a risk. You know, I'm always looking for new ways to explain the power of the 5-second rule and the power of 5-second decisions. And I read something that Tim Ferriss said that really resonated with me. And he had this one line buried in a podcast somewhere that just jumped out, and it's stuck. And what he said is, he said something about how there's a gap between the world and the things that trigger you and your response. And your entire life is that gap. When you start to, this is not what he said, I kind of identified this gap, and I, of course, intrinsically was like, well, absolutely, that's the 5-second window between instinct or stimulus and your reaction. And when you start to understand that your whole life plays out in this 5-second gap, and that there's a gap that's 5 seconds long between fear and courage, and there's a gap that's 5 seconds long between self-doubt and confidence, that is your life. And what's super cool about understanding that your whole life is inside this gap is it's so small, everybody, that you have the ability to control it. Life's always gonna throw triggers at you, and there will always be all kinds of cool things that inspire you, your wisdom, and you get to choose what happens in that gap. Do you succumb to an excuse, or do you push yourself forward? When you start to speak up in business, you'll be shocked at how you start to speak up in your relationships. When you start to make hard phone calls, whether it's in a selling situation, you'll be surprised at how you'll start to close the gap and have hard conversations in your personal life. And so that gap is everywhere, and it's the same everywhere. And when you start to go to work in controlling how you live in that gap between stimulus or idea and your response, that's where the magic is. And that's what you're experiencing. A lot of times it's the pattern of negative thoughts. I'm fat, I'm this, I'm that, I'm the other thing, I'm not good enough, I'm not smart enough. Or even just worrying. What if the Delta variant takes off? What if I don't go back to work? What if this happens? What if that? How is that helping you exactly? Like there's productive worry, which is worry that motivates you to take action. And then there's destructive worry, which is worry that makes you literally circle the drain mentally. You always want to interrupt destructive worrying or any kind of destructive self-talk. So the second you catch yourself going, gosh, I look fat, or boy, I'm a loser, or there I go, I failed again, you're like, literally slap that shit away, like high five it away. I'm not thinking about that. I'm not thinking about that. I'm not thinking about that. And you start with, I'm not thinking about that, because if you're so used to hearing I'm not good enough, there's no fucking way you're going to believe the mantra, I'm good enough. Because the thing about mantras are, and this is why most mantras are bullshit, is they don't work unless you believe them. And so there is power in creating what's called a meaningful mantra. But the first step to getting control of the negative self-talk is interrupt that shit. Don't listen to it. I'm not thinking about that. I'm not thinking about that. And then what I want you to do is just do that for a day. I'm not thinking about that. I'm not thinking about that. If you have any kind of thought that makes you feel bad, that you don't like, I'm not thinking about that. The next day, start to notice what are the patterns in terms of the thoughts that come up. You know, when I was writing this book, one of my daughters talked about the fact that she's constantly feeling like she's not a good person. And so, for example, she missed a dentist appointment. And because she's constantly thinking I'm not a good person, missing the dentist appointment becomes evidence. See, there I am again. I missed the dentist appointment. I'm not a good person. No. Are you kidding? Like, if somebody doesn't have the story, if somebody has a different story, like I'm a pretty good person, I do my best, and you miss the dentist appointment, a lot of us are like, oh, thank God, I can't stand the dentist. You know, I'll pay the $20 fee. I don't have to go. You don't attach, I'm a shitty person to it. And so she started using, I'm not thinking about that. She's not ready to believe she's a good person yet, because she's so used to saying, I'm not a good person. So the first step is interrupt the thing, then take notice, and then you can start to create what I call a meaningful mantra, because now we want to break the pattern by saying, I'm not thinking about that, or use the 5-second rule, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And then when you're ready, you can create a meaningful mantra to replace it, because any pattern is going to repeat unless you replace it. And so meaningful mantras are things that you can be like, yeah, I can believe that. So it might be, I'm not perfect, but I'm trying. I'm not perfect, but I'm doing my best. I screw up sometimes, but I'm not a bad person. You know, like those kind of things that are sort of not like, yeah, superhero, mantra, I'm fabulous. Like, most of us don't really feel that way about ourselves. So if you just are like, I'm doing the best I can, that's pretty empowering if you think about it. Or I can learn from this. Or this is temporary. I'll be okay. Those sorts of things are little ways to high-five your mind instead of, again, going low. You got a choice. Do you take yourself down or do you lift yourself up? Are you going outside of yourself or are you coming back in for what you need? I want you to come in and lift yourself up. That's what the high-five habit's about.
So we've been getting a ton of questions about being paralyzed with the fear of what other people think. And this is so commonplace. I think every human being on the planet is paralyzed in some aspect or some area of their life because they're concerned about what their parents or what their friends or what their friends on Facebook or what their colleagues or what their upline or their downline or whatever, what their neighbors are going to think. If you are struggling with this and you have not found it helpful to attack your thinking patterns, then here's a trick that I want you to try to break the pattern of being paralyzed by what other people think. I want you to pick one thing that you've been wanting to do, that you've been thinking about, but you have stopped yourself from doing because you're concerned about what other people think. Let me give you some examples. Maybe you've wanted to go on a wellness retreat, but you think your spouse will roll their eyes at you, so you haven't done it. Maybe you have a particular Facebook post or a blog. So many of you want to start a business or start creating art, but you're terrified of putting yourself out there because of what other people will think. Today, we're going to break that pattern. What you're going to do is you're going to pick one thing you've been stopping yourself from doing, and you're going to do it. You're going to do it. And the reason why I want you to do this is because I know that if you're still paralyzed, you have not been able to change your thinking patterns yet. That's cool. No problem. We're going to try a different tactic. I want you to change this paralysis through action. Because if you sign up for that class, if you go on that retreat, if you create your art, if you post that blog post, if you start that business, you will be proving to yourself through the actions that you're taking that you don't care what other people think. Try that today. Let me know, number one, what you've stopped yourself from doing, and number two, what you're committing to doing today. Because one way to break this is to attack the thoughts and change the thoughts and get into action first. The other way to do it is to recognize that you're paralyzed, pick one thing that you're going to do, and actually get it done. I always think about business as levels, right? And I also realize that as the media landscape or the particular vertical or industry that you're building a business in is changing, that is a constant, and it's something that you can't control, right? You just cannot control the things that are happening in the world around us, but you can always control what you're thinking and what you're doing in response to it. So all of my work centers inside this gap between what's happening in your life and in your work and what your reaction is to it, and how you can't control the things that are going on around you, but you can always control what your reaction is. And that gap there, that's about 5 seconds long. When you start to understand that you can change how you think, you can change your habits, you can change how you lead, you can pivot
and change even the philosophy of your company, and you can do it through the decisions that you're making and managing your reactions, you will become unstoppable. So 3.5 years ago, I got into the speaking business because of the popularity of that TEDx talk that I gave. And that first year I did, I don't know, I think it was like 27 speeches. The next year I did 87. Last year I did 121. I was the most booked female speaker in the world. This year I've capped it at 80, and here's why. I realized, just like you may be realizing in your business, whatever your business is, that there are aspects of your business that you love and that energize you, and there are aspects of your business that are depleting as hell, and that are old and that are tired, and that if you continue in that lane, you're going to end up 10 years from now in a place that you don't want to be. It's so important for you to pay attention to what's energizing you about the landscape around you and about your own business, because that's the secret to seeing around corners. And so the corner that I was seeing around is that as an entrepreneur, even though it's wildly lucrative to do what I do just on the speaking platform, I mean, anybody can do the math on 121 speeches, right? And the amount of money that I get paid to show up and deliver a 1-hour talk, and realize there's a lot of money. Here's the problem. It's a terrible business because you can't scale it other than raising your price or raising the number of times you do it. And guess what else? You have to show up. And I can't sell it. So I found myself in a situation where I had built a multi-million-dollar business, highly profitable, and it was depleting the hell out of me, and I can't really scale it, and I can't sell it. Terrible position to be in an entrepreneur. So I made a decision that what was it, Bo, that actually energizes me about my business? And I answered it with the first question. It's hearing from people. I would rather answer comments on Instagram all day long than stand in a stadium with 5,000 people in it. I get more from the one-to-one connection. That's what fuels me. And so I had this light bulb moment, paying attention, being clear that, wait a minute, I don't want to build the biggest speaking platform, and I don't want to build a coaching business. I want to build a content company. I want to go back to my roots and build a media company. And so with that insight, I now have to change, right? Because the kind of businesswoman that runs a multi-million-dollar speaking business, where it's just you and your speaking management firm and your travel folks and your logistics people and maybe your social media manager. That's who's on the team. The kind of leader that runs that kind of team is very different than the kind of leader that is going to grow a $100 million media company, that's going to syndicate content every single day, that is going to own what she's doing, that's going to build Instagram and Facebook and YouTube and LinkedIn as my personal ABC, CNBC, Fox. And this is what I want you to understand about the story. And that is this: in order to get to the next level in your business, you got to decide right now, what habits do you have as a leader that you have to change now? Because you will not see around the corner. You will not engineer that next quantum leap unless you personally change. And so one of the reasons why I've gone from being the most successful female, book speaker on the speaking circuit to launching the #1 book on all of the self-publishing platform for Amazon, and one of the most read books in the world, and selling like gangbusters still, is because I am constantly innovating myself. I know that I am the single biggest problem in my company. And if I don't constantly pivot and evolve how I lead and what I'm focused on, I'm going to be the blockade. And so, stop looking at what everybody else is doing, stop micromanaging the team, and ask yourself, 2 years from now, when you think about where you want your company to be, what habit do you have to change right now? If you're living in the past, you're going to be depressed because you are rehashing things that happened to you that are not going to happen again. If you're living in the future, you're going to be anxious because you are anticipating what's coming, or you're wishing for things that aren't happening yet. Being in the present is where the gold is. Being in the present moment is where you will have the greatest control, where you will feel the most at ease, and where happiness
flourishes. There's a super tight connection between happiness and the ability to live in the present moment. A lot of people believe that happiness is tied to the things that happen to you. Not so at all. In fact, there is a professor of positive psychology. He's one of the grandfathers of the movement. He teaches at the University of Pennsylvania. His name is Martin Seligman, and he's studied happiness for decades. Now, one of the things that we've talked about a lot is that 40% of your happiness levels are preset by genetics. 60% you are in complete control of. And one of the things that this professor has discovered is that it doesn't matter what's happened to you. In fact, some of the people that have had the worst things happen to them, like people that have survived the Holocaust, are actually the happiest and most grateful people in the world. Happiness comes down to this right up here. It comes down to your thoughts, it comes down to your mindset, it comes down to your attitude, and you are 100% control of what you're thinking. You may not be in control of how you feel in the moment, but you can always, 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 always be in control of what you think. And that will change how you're feeling. One of the most powerful things that you can do in terms of think, and this gets back to Strick's question, is how do you be present? Being present is literally nothing more than the skill of having your thoughts be in this moment, not in the past, not in the future, but right here. The way that you teach yourself how to do that is that the moment that you catch yourself being distracted, the moment you catch yourself starting to worry, the moment you catch yourself drifting to the future or drifting to the past, that's a moment of tremendous power because you basically just woke up. You basically just noticed that you're not here in this particular moment. So use that wake-up call, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and ground yourself in this moment. The best way to ground yourself in the moment is to look for something in this particular moment that you can savor. Now, I'm using the word savor on purpose because it's the word that psychologists use to describe what happens when you find something in this moment right now, right here, right now, to focus on and to appreciate. It could be literally the questions. These are printed out questions from people on social media. And if I were to stop and look at these and savor them, what I would feel in this moment is a tremendous amount of gratitude because people are taking the time to write. And that makes me feel incredibly grateful. And it also makes me very happy because it means that the folks that are writing are taking control of their lives and seeking out the information that they need. Another form of savoring that we can all relate to is eating. As you're eating, instead of drifting to the future and thinking about all the things that you need to do or hanging out in the past and rehashing everything that's happened during the day, be in this moment, in this meal. Slow down. Think about the food that you're eating. Think about the people that you're sitting with and how you feel about them. And if you want to take it up a notch, actually acknowledge them. Hey, this food tastes amazing. Thank you for cooking. Or I'm so glad to see you and that we get the time to have this meal together. Those small, simple acts of savoring are how you expand your happiness inside the present moment. So, how do you be more present? Simple. The moment that you catch yourself in the future, in the past, worrying, whatever, refocus yourself right here, right now, and then find something right here, right now that you can savor. And when you do that, you're not only going to be present, you're going to feel more grateful, and you're going to feel a little boost of happiness.
And why are you nervous about getting on a plane and flying to LA?
I always get a little nervous before flying. I get a little bit afraid, like nervous leaving my kids and that everything's going to get done and then I'll be okay on the plane. And I start to go through the to-do list of things I might have forgotten.
But are you worried about things not getting done or are you worried about dying in a plane?
Dying in a plane.
Let's be honest. We're all worried when we fly about dying in a plane. And I'll confess something. Even though I fly all the time, like literally some years more than 120 flights a year.
Oh my God.
Whenever I get on a plane, I always think about whether or not the plane is going to go down. And I get very nervous when Chris and I fly together.
Right.
Because I think about what happens if something happens to Chris and I and, you know, our kids. Well, so here's one thing. I kind of get pragmatic and I go, well, I'm not going to be there, so I'm not going to have to deal with it. But that's not going to help you. So I want to give you a little trick. Because this is what has really helped me get over the fear of flying over all these years. So here's the trick. Before you do your trip, I want you to come up with one vision of what's one thing you're excited to do the whole week that you're out in LA shooting for those 3 clients. What's the vision of the thing you're the most excited about? Describe it.
Honestly, I mean, I'm excited about the shoots, but I'm more excited about having creative space for myself.
Describe what that looks like. Describe the place you're going to be
I'm
in.
going to be in a bungalow in Topanga by myself with this like cute little boho haven with my journal, my books, my computer, just dreaming up the dream.
Fabulous. Okay, great. So now that you have a specific vision, you're going to start using it now, because I know that the fear of flying doesn't just happen when you're on the plane. It's already kicked in, isn't it? Right. Okay. So every time you feel yourself
24 hours with my kids left.
24 hours with my children. I got to be the best mother ever, because if I die, I want these memories to be incredible. So when you feel yourself getting nervous, I want you to immediately envision yourself in that bungalow. Envision yourself in that space. Just taking a deep breath, right? And then you're going to say these words, and it's really important that you say these words. I'm so excited. I'm so excited to be in that space with that creative freedom. I can see the bunk. I'm so excited to have that. And what happens when you say I'm so excited is you take the nervous anxiety energy, and instead of fighting, resisting, and letting it take over, you actually kind of channel and steer it toward a different emotion, which is excitement. And in your body, there's no difference between a nervous feeling and an excited feeling. So it's a simple trick that has profound science behind it. They studied this at Harvard Medical School and Harvard Business School. It's incredible. It's called reframing performance anxiety. So if you say, I'm so excited, you have a specific vision, you trick your mind into thinking about the bungalow, and your body settles immediately.
Wow. Cool.
And so you might have to use it 37 times on the 5-hour flight to LA. You might use it 72 times between now and when you get on that plane.
Yeah.
But it will, I'm not kidding you, allow you to take control of your body, take control of your mind, let that spirit inside you soar. I call this like mind, body, spirit confidence.
Yeah.
And this is a little trick. I'm so excited with the vision. And then when you're coming home, come up with a corresponding thing about what you're super excited to do when you get home. And then every time you feel slightly nervous when you're on the plane, I'm so excited to pull into the driveway and have the kids run out. I'm so excited to look at my, like, whatever it is, okay?
Okay.
Got it? How do you feel?
Good. Excited.
Oh, good. Let me know how that works for you too. Because we're all afraid of flying. Come on, we're all afraid to die. We're all afraid to go down in a plane. But you can. The fear is normal and real. But you have the power to use body, mind, spirit, confidence to steer the fear and nerves into excitement for what you're about to go do. Wow. This is a collective issue. And if you're scared right now, if you've lost your job, if you're worried about running out of money, you're not alone. 58% of Americans have less than $1,000 in savings. So if you're worried about money, if you don't have the savings to see yourself through the end of the summer, you're not alone. You're in the majority, which is why I want to talk about this. We're going to talk about the 5 things I want you to do. Everybody needs to stop and accept the new normal. What does that mean? In my mind, the new normal means the end of this year. The new normal means that you want to stop and you want to assess if this is going to go on in terms of self-isolation for a couple months, which I think it probably will, and then we come out of it. It's going to take a little bit of time. Number 2, I need you to face your fear and get the facts. This is the most important part. You ready? I want you to pull 2 months of your bank statements, print them out, and then go through them. And you're going to need 2 things. Get a highlighter and get a pen. Highlight all of the deductions from your account. That's going to tell you where you're spending money, and then make a list of all of those businesses. Now that you've highlighted all the deductions and you have listed all the businesses, now it is time to pick up the phone and get proactive. That's step number 3. Now we're going to go from being paralyzed to proactive. So here's what I want you to do. Anything you don't need, get rid of. If there is a subscription to something that you don't need, get rid of it. If you don't go to the gym, it is time to face reality, everybody.
and figure out what apps are charging you that you didn't even realize. Is your kid's Xbox attached to your credit card? Now is the time to take control of this stuff, everybody. And now, here's a really great tip for mindset. Pretend that the bills that you're looking at and the financial reality that you're looking at are either your best friends or your brother or sisters. Why? If you pretend that the bills that you're looking at or the financial reality that you're looking at is somebody else's, you leverage the power of objectivity, which means you and I could look at somebody else's bills and be like, oh my God, dude, you got to get rid of that cable bill. Oh, what the hell? We would have a level of objectivity and boom. And so you can hack that in your own mind when you look at your bank statement. Don't make yourself wrong. And then say, if this were my brother, my sister, or my best friend, what tough love would I give them right now? What would I cut out? And then here's the final piece of advice. You have to check your ego at the door. This isn't happening to you. It's happening to the world. This isn't your personal crisis. This is a global crisis. And I need you to take comfort in that. Everybody is facing some level of crisis. This isn't unique to you. And inside of that is an enormous opportunity because collectively we're going through something. And collectively people are rallying at a local level. And there are resources available to help you that have been launched in the last week. So this is a time to check your ego and to ask for help. Whether that help is from your family, or it's from your friends, or it's from your neighborhood, or it's from your local government, or it's from the local food pantry. If you've been laid off from a job and you're worried about money, not every business is shrinking. There are businesses that are growing. Walmart just announced that they are hiring 150,000 temporary workers. The Dollar Tree just announced they are hiring 25,000 workers. Domino's is looking for another 10,000 people. Grocery store chains are looking for people. I want you to lower your anxiety now and know that you accepted the new normal. You faced your fears and got your facts straight about where you stand. You moved yourself from being paralyzed to opening those bills, to making those calls, to making those asks and being proactive. Leverage the power of objectivity. And finally, you checked your ego at the door in this moment and you asked for help, or you applied for a job that you normally wouldn't apply for. That is what is going to get you through, because that is what resilient people do. You do what is necessary in the times that you are facing.
I hope she learned something.
You're never going to feel ready to speak up. Okay, and for girls in particular, super important, visibility. You don't get credit for things people don't see. And so raising your voice and learning how to do it in a classroom before you get into the workforce, before you got to raise money, so important. And so what I want you to know is you're never, if you're somebody who's like introverted or somewhat shy, you're never going to feel comfortable doing it. But you've got to do it. Your dreams depend on it. What happens in your body when you're about to raise your hand?
I kind of get nervous,
Okay, and what does it feel like in your body?
like kind of dragging me down.
Okay, does your stomach hurt or is your throat tight?
Yeah.
Does your chest get a rash like mine used to?
No,
Oh, see, you're lucky. Okay, what about your hands? Do they get clammy?
a bit.
Yeah? Okay, so the main thing to do is when that happens, just go, oh, that's that thing Mel was talking about. My body's getting ready to talk. So before I give a speech, I give about 100 speeches a year. Do you know what happens in my body? My stomach hurts. My armpits are like Niagara Falls. My hands are clammy. My throat is tight. And I feel like I'm going to throw up. Do you think I'm nervous? Exactly. My body is getting in a state to do something. That's why nerves and excitement are the exact same. So the next time you're in a class or you're with a group of friends and there's something you want to say, tell me what happens again in your body?
My stomach hurts.
Your stomach starts to hurt? What does it mean?
I don't know.
Yes. What does it mean on a positive side?
I'm getting ready to talk.
Yes, you're getting ready to talk. I love that. So that's the way that we are going to label that tape in your mind. My stomach's in knots. Okay, I'm not nervous. I'm getting ready to talk. Here we go. That's that signal Mel Robbins said. She gets it in the stadium. I'm getting it right now. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, I'm going. Hey, it's Mel. Thank you so much for being here. If you enjoyed that video, by God, please subscribe because I don't want you to miss a thing. Thank you so much for being here. We've got so much amazing stuff coming. Thank you so much for sending this stuff to your friends and your family. I love you. We create these videos for you. So make sure you subscribe. Mwah.